Wyoming. Now, Ken Paxton, in his announcement on this lawsuit, said this. He detailed it in a press release. He wrote that Attorney General Ken Paxton sued BlackRock, State Street Corporation, and Vanguard Group, three of the largest institutional investors in the world, for conspiring to artificially constrict the market for coal through anti-competitive trade practices. And it notes that over several years, the three asset managers acquired substantial stock holdings in every significant publicly held coal producer in the United States, thereby gaining the power to control the policies of the coal companies. And using their combined influence over the coal market, the investment cartel, they're referring to it as, collectively announced in 2021 their commitment to weaponize their shares to pressure the coal companies to accommodate green energy goals. And to achieve this, it says, the investment companies pushed to reduce coal output by more than half by 2030. Now it notes, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street utilize the Climate Action 100, and remember that name because it's going to come up a lot, and the Net Zero Asset Managers Initiative to signal their mutual intent to reduce the output of thermal coal, which predictably increased the cost of electricity for Americans across the United States. And note these firms also deceived thousands of investors who elected to invest in non-ESG, that's environmental social governance funds, to maximize their profits, yet these funds pursued ESG strategies, notwithstanding the defendants' presentations to the contrary. And it notes that deliberately and artificially constricting supply increased prices and enabled the investment companies to produce extraordinary revenue gains. This conspiracy violated multiple federal laws that prevent a major shareholder or a group of shareholders from using their shares to lessen competition or engage in other anti-competitive schemes. Further, it says the companies broke Texas antitrust and deceptive trade practice laws. This is beginning, in other words. Now, look, in response to this, just briefly, in response to this, BlackRock, they told Bloomberg in a statement that this lawsuit undermines the pro-business reputation that Texas has, and they said, quote, the suggestion that BlackRock invested money in companies with the goal of harming those companies is baseless and defies common sense. And Vanguard, it notes, declined to comment. Now, on this, though, right, this lawsuit, it's been a long time coming. A lot of people anticipated this lawsuit would be coming out. There are a lot of other ones like it. This may be the big one. It ties into the broader criticisms of ESG. That's environmental, social, and governance. Basically, the agenda that was being pushed on a lot of the energy firms and a lot of other companies trying, not even just energy firms, just any company, trying to force them to become more environmentally friendly, more socially friendly, and to engage also in a type of governance using their businesses to influence policy. What did that actually mean? A lot of the green initiatives being forced on companies, whether it's your air conditioner company or your refrigerator or your energy company or even random ones you never think of, where they're trying to meet this, quote, net zero type policy, that is ESG. Now, the companies basically, when it comes to the big firms pushing this, they've been investing based on social practices rather than possible profit. And the line that's allegedly being crossed is that some of the firms, by investing only in companies that follow these agendas, the firms are allegedly creating different social standards and criteria that industries have to adhere to if they want investment. You know, AKA some of the quote-unquote woke policies as they're framed come through this. And since companies, they can't really survive without that investment, right? These are some of the biggest investment firms in the world. Companies need that money because they can't survive without it. The firms can then dictate the practices of most of the industry. And this is where the label of calling them a cartel comes from, which among Republicans has been one of the bigger labels. Now, Republicans, they've been among the bigger critics of this whole agenda. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's been at the forefront of some of the pushback against ESG with legislation and executive changes. And we've seen lawsuits on ESG from attorneys general in Mississippi and Tennessee, as well as many others over the past just couple years, meaning different states, mostly with Republican attorneys general, are pushing back against this agenda and really having the effect of tearing it down. Now, look, the whole agenda with ESG really ran into pressure through around, say 2023. And this relates to the lawsuits we're now seeing coming out of Texas. The attorneys general of 21 different states, they co-authored a letter to various asset management firms looking into possible antitrust violations within the whole ESG agenda. This is the actual letter from them. Let me show you this. Have a look. They say, we are writing this open letter to asset manager industry participants to raise our concerns about the ongoing agreements between asset managers to use American savings to push political goals during the upcoming proxy season. Your companies are some of the largest asset managers in the United States, collectively controlling trillions of dollars of investments. Many individuals and organizations count on you to provide sound investment products and advice. The top 3 asset managers alone cast about a quarter of votes at S&P 500 companies' shareholder meetings. And notes, you are therefore not only bound to follow the general laws discussed above, but also have extensive responsibilities under both federal and state laws governing securities. Broadly, those laws require you to act as fiduciary in the best interest of your clients and exercising due care and loyalty. Simply put, they say, you are not the same as political or social activists, and you should not be allowing the vast savings entrusted to you to be commandeered by activists to advance non-financial goals. Many asset managers, however, have made commitments that cast doubt on their adherence to fiduciary requirements, representations to customers about their services, and compliance with antitrust laws. As explained further below, asset managers have committed to use client assets to change portfolio company behavior so that it aligns with the environmental, social, and governance ESG goal by achieving net zero by 2050. Now, on this, one of the ways these asset firms get a lot of their money, and there's a lot of different ways, but a lot of it comes from states and from the government. And this is because a lot of your retirements, if you, for example, have a pension or whatever else, it's tied in with these companies. A lot of different states within the U.S., they put your retirement and the investments for your retirement into these big asset managers. And these asset managers getting money from all the different states, from different government agencies and branches, even some of the military retirements, for example, are tied in with this. Those companies then have all this money, trillions of dollars, not just from that, but from other areas as well. They're then entrusted to have what's called a fiduciary duty to increase the value of that so that when you retire, you actually have money to retire on. What they've done, or at least the allegation is they've used that money to create a type of agenda between themselves, amongst each other, and in relation to third-party organizations and international organizations, pushing net zero, pushing different, global climate agendas, using that money to then say, we will not invest in your company, we will not put the money here unless you adhere to certain requirements. They then gain investment, holdings in different companies that allow them to dictate company policy and then steer the direction of those companies in a way that advances this agenda. Now, on that front, you could say this agenda, ESG, was aligned with, a lot of political goals. A lot of governments, including the United States, have for a very long time now pushed for environmental standards, like the Paris Accord and so on, right? They've pushed for various social agendas, things trying to advance, anti-racist trainings or, more tolerant type policies. That's been the big agenda. And tying this in not only with the government side, but not in the business side, but relating with government, they're trying to also influence governments to adopt these types of policies as well. Now, For a long time, that was taken to be a type of like socially responsible investment. This was regarded as a place people would want to put their money because they want to advance those goals. But the lawsuits coming out now are arguing that these companies are not activists. They're not people who should be pushing for types of social agendas. They legally have what's called a fiduciary duty. And in the letter from these attorneys general, that's what they're telling these companies. You're not activists. You have legal requirements. If you're getting this money, for a fiduciary duty to increase the value of the money you're given, so that when people retire, they actually have money to spend and so on, and not to use this money in such ways to try to steer the whole global picture, basically, because that's a lot of money to be using, and that's a lot of power to be wielding if they do that. Now, again, this letter from the attorneys general, the big key phrase here is fiduciary requirements. Now, the argument was that the companies were violating their fiduciary duty of trying to, increase value by instead pushing agendas that go against that. The attorneys general note that there are downsides and risks to ESG investments, on the fiduciary duty side, including, for example, higher fees that some of the firms charge for the funds, and also the key issue that many of the funds seem to not actually perform well. They tend to perform well because it's, groups working in conjunction with each other to force it. It worked basically, they allege, according to the attorneys general, as a way to force new trends in the industry that are not profitable, but are only profitable because of the monopoly that exists. That's the allegation. Now, the pressure on the various investment firms that were pushing the ESG agenda has also been coming from the federal government. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.